There are millions of podcasts being done all over the world that take on the personalities of their creator. Some bring in thousands of listeners each week. Some bring in large amounts of revenue, while others entertain millions and help sell products. If you're like many podcasters, you want to reach your maximum potential. But how? How do you make your podcast stand out from all the rest? Join Dr. Barrett Matthews as he talks to experts who are doing it on The Productive Podcaster. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Productive Podcaster. I am your host, Dr. Barrett Matthews. And if this is your first time with The Productive Podcaster, what I would like you to do is to know what we're all about first. What we're about is helping you as either a potential podcaster or an existing podcaster to learn that there's no cookie cutter way to do things. I bring on people here and I show you there are different ways to do your podcast so that you don't have to feel pigeonholed and you don't have to feel that you're not ready to do it because you're not like everyone else. Do it your way. That's what we're here to do. You can be productive doing anything the way you want to do your podcast as a podcaster here with The Productive Podcaster. So if this is your first time, or if you're an existing podcaster, what I want you to do right now is make sure you share to everyone. Let them know what you're doing. You're listening and you're watching The Productive Podcaster. Let them all know that. Subscribe. Let them know that they should be a part of this as well. So as I like to begin every single show on The Productive Podcaster, I like to do a segment I like to call Pros and Cons.
Pros and Cons.
Now, what is pros and cons? Pros and cons is where I give you a pro tip to help you to become a productive podcaster. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you about today is formats. A lot of people wonder, how should I do the format for my show? Should it be interview? Should it be solo? Should it be the different types of ways? Well, there's several ways you can do it. We talked before in other episodes about doing an interview, doing guest, and doing solo and so forth. But you can also do a roundtable. You can do a roundtable discussion where you have different guests come in and talk about a topic. You can also do a documentary where you have a narrator walk through a range of interviews and conversations, like on location and stuff. You can also do a docudrama. I've seen so many different ways of doing podcasts to where some of them are series. You can do it something like that, with a little intrigue in it, have some comedy, whatever, however you want to do it. You can even do a course through your podcast. There are so many different formats you can use in doing your podcast, but I don't want you to think that you have to be like everyone else. Be different. There's nothing wrong with being different. So that is pros and cons for today. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna take a quick break and I'm gonna come back with a very special guest. And I know you're always saying the same thing, Barry. You always say your guests are very special. Well, that's because they are. Don't hate on me. Don't hate me because my guests are special, okay? So we're gonna be right back. Stay where you are. We'll be right back with more of The Productive Podcaster. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. All right, welcome back to the Productive Podcast, everybody. I told you guys I had a very special guest for you, and I'm not lying. I never lie about that. My guests are special. As a matter of fact, my guest today, she has a podcast. She's the top 10% according to Listen Notes for her podcast. She's about to celebrate an anniversary, and so we're going to congratulate her for that. And she has more than 50 guests from around the world. That's right, around the world. Because guess what? She is around the world. I'm in the United States. She is in the Netherlands. She's in the Netherlands. That's right. You heard me. And she's here with us on the Productive Podcast. And the thing I like about it is that we can talk about food when we talk about her podcast. So I'm going to bring to the Productive Podcaster none other than Loubna Zarrou. Loubna, welcome to the Productive Podcaster. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. So first of all, I love this. Tell everyone the name of your podcast.
Well, I hope you're paying attention right now. My podcast is called The Entrepreneurs Sushi Club.
Sushi. I like sushi. So
oh, I love sushi. I am a proud sushi addict.
Yeah, really? Are you really? Okay.
Yes.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second because that's interesting. So what made you come up with that particular topic? I love that.
Oh, I love sharing that story. I've shared it so many times, and each and every time I still get into that story.
Cool.
So I'm going to take you back a little bit to 2019.
Okay.
Now, I had been an entrepreneur for 9 years by that time, and I started at it being a side hustle. I wasn't a full-time entrepreneur. I am now. Mm-hmm. I left my job a couple of years ago. And in that period of time, I have attended so many conferences, networking, meeting with entrepreneurs, both in the Netherlands as well as abroad. Mm-hmm. And what I observed, let me put it this way, what I observed is that all of these events are all about entrepreneurship. And I know what you're thinking right now. Loubna, that is logical. I know it's very logical. But for someone like me, who is primarily interested in the human being behind the entrepreneur or behind the senior executive or behind the secretary or the cleaning man, I didn't feel fulfilled because I wanted to know about the character of people, about the personality of people, about who they are when we strip away the fact that they are an entrepreneur, or they are a senior executive, they are a mother, or they are a father, whatever label you choose to adopt. It really doesn't matter who you are, because let's be honest, I've heard about enough stories and read enough books and seen a lot of documentaries of people who made millions and then overnight lost them because they made a couple of bad decisions. And what they were left with is who they are and what they know right now. So I was more interested. I thought, would be so interested if you can combine multiple passions in such a way that it would give you a little bit more insight into who someone is as an entrepreneur or a senior executive, whatever your audience is. Mm-hmm. And as I was thinking about this, my brain always goes wild. I was reminded of something that I either have heard somewhere or someone told me. I can't remember which one it was, but someone said, if you can't find what you're looking for, create it. So I thought, what if? And those two words coming out of my mouth are the most dangerous two words you will ever hear, because an idea will come out of my mouth and whoever is near me is going to be a partner in the realization of that idea.
I love
which
it.
is how the Entrepreneur Sushi Club happened. And I was thinking, what if I created a community called the Entrepreneur Sushi Club, where entrepreneurs can get together because they are entrepreneurs and they're passionate about their entrepreneurship, but also about sushi. A place that I create, a safe space where they can talk about sushi all day, every day, without ever hearing the words, can you please stop talking about sushi? I don't like sushi. Because let's be honest, if you are listening to this and you like or love sushi in such a way that you're so passionate that you can talk about it, you need to have it at least a couple of times a week. You have people around you that are thinking, I can't believe that you actually eat raw fish. But you want to connect with other people that understand you. Who doesn't want that?
I love it.
I get crazy ideas. So I didn't do anything with it until October 2019.
Okay.
A friend of mine, Gail, I said to her, I said, you have to come to the Netherlands. I found a potential location for the workshops that we were planning to organize in 2020. Mm-hmm. As you can imagine, those workshops did not happen because we were still thinking we're going to do physical workshops. And we're going to do one in London where she lives, and we're going to do one in the Netherlands. And I found a mansion owned by a friend of mine that would be perfect for us to do a workshop in. So I said, get yourself on a plane, come to the Netherlands, attend this event with entrepreneurs in the mansion, because I got my friend to say yes for hosting an event at that place. Uh-huh. You can have a look, and then based on your experience, we can decide whether or not we want to hold the workshop here. It is an option, but we don't have to. She did. She got on a plane, flew to the Netherlands, and it was an evening event with entrepreneurs. So just before we started, I said, well, what do you want to have for dinner? Because I always ask the guest what they want to have for dinner. That is in my upbringing. And she said, well, I don't know. I'm in your country. What would you like to have? And I said, well, what I haven't had this week, and I do have it once a week minimum, is sushi. And she goes, oh my God, I love sushi. And I'm not exaggerating with that response in any way, shape, or form. And to be really honest, it was actually really good that she responded in that way, because to me, that is a sushi adoring entrepreneur, someone who's actually, oh my God, I just found one.
Yeah. She's your people.
She's my people. That opened the door for me to say, well, while we wait for sushi, because I ordered it, I want to share with you an idea that I've had for months, but I haven't actioned on it. So, and I said, I'm thinking about starting a community Facebook group called the Entrepreneur Sushi Club, where, we can chat. She said, why haven't you done it already? I'm like, what? She said, I want you to grab your phone. You're going to create that group right now, right here. And I'm going to be the first member of that group. I did. I created the group, and she was the very first that entered, but still I didn't do something with it. So there was something missing, and I didn't know what it was, but I trusted the universe well enough to know, okay, it will come to me. It will come to me what this needs to be, how I need to bring this into the world. Fast forward, so we're in October 2009. Fast forward to December 2019. I am speaking at an event in Manchester, the UK. Gail, my friend, is also speaking at that event. So we arrive in Manchester on the very first day of the 3-day event. I'm speaking on the first day. Gail is speaking on the second. And on the very first day, in the very first morning, a couple of us speakers are there early. So before we go to our booth and set everything up, we introduce ourselves to each other. Sitting at a round table, every speaker, and Woon, who's the third co-host of the Entrepreneur Sushi Club, starts introducing himself as, I'm owner of a podcast agency. And while he's talking and finishing whatever sentence he said, I don't know what he said next, I turn my head and say, Gail, what if? Remember those 2 words that I said are very dangerous coming out of my mouth? I said, Gail, what if the Entrepreneur Sushi Club is a podcast? And I have a loud voice. So as I was saying, she goes, and Woon heard me and said, that is a great idea. I'm in. I'm like, what? He said, I'm in. I'm like, what do you mean you're in? I just said, what if? And he said, it's a great idea for a podcast. I've never heard about someone doing a podcast like that. It's unique. It's funny. It's quirky. It has the potential to be absolutely ridiculously big. Let's do this. I want to be part of this. I'm like, okay, let's have a chat after the event, because we're all concentrating on us speaking. It was my day to speak. I was in a couple of hours. I was getting up on that stage in front of 100 entrepreneurs. So fast forward to Saturday, the second day of the event. Woon is on stage. I'm in the back of the room talking to Gail. Now, I don't remember doing this. So this is all them, Gail sharing this with me. So you know there's something stupid coming. I told you I'm weird. And I'm proud weird. And Woon just gave everyone a presentation, the very first segment of his presentation around, you have to come up with a concept idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm half listening to him and half having a conversation with Gail in the back of the room, prepping for her presentation. So we're talking. And after about 10 minutes, he asked the audience who wants to share that podcast concept. There's a mic running going. And apparently, again, I do not remember doing this, but in the middle of a sentence that I was saying, I got up out of my chair, leaped to the front of the room. So I left Gail in what just happened mode, leaped to the front of the room, demanded the mic so that Woon would tell the mic runner to give the mic. Yeah. I get the mic because Woon saw that I was very seriously wanting to share something. I get to grab the mic and I say, these words come out of my mouth. We are launching the Entrepreneur Sushi Club podcast in January 2020. Now, remember, I left one person completely surprised and thinking, what just happened? And another person on stage thinking, did she just announce that we're launching a podcast before we even had a conversation about how we're going to work together? And the rest is history.
I love it. You know what I love most about it? Because there are people who are listening to this podcast or watching us right now, and they're thinking that they have this quirky idea and nobody's going to be interested in that. Nobody wants to do. And what you did, and see, I hope everyone's paying attention. What she did is she started a community first. She started a community. So if you have a community, I don't care if you have 5 people, you have somebody interested other than yourself.
Oh, I had one.
I had 2 because one was interested in sushi, one was interested in the podcast. So,
Woon loves sushi too. That is what was appealing to him, to be really fair. And within 24 hours, we went like, okay, look, now you just announced it to the whole audience. Now we have to get guests. So each one of us went into other speakers and said, do you love sushi? Do you love sushi? Do you love sushi? Oh, and everyone who said, yes, you're a guest on the podcast. Okay, you're a guest on the podcast. We booked the very first 4 to 6 guests in that room within 12 hours.
See, I love it. That is one of the most, you're like the perfect guest for this show. Because, no, I'm serious, because I love, you heard in the opening, I like to let people know that there's no cookie cutter way to do a podcast.
Oh God, you just start. I mean, you can always stop.
Just start. That is wonderful. So how many episodes have you done?
We have done, I think almost 60 episodes up to this point.
Oh, and congratulations, your anniversary, your 1-year anniversary.
Yes. Last Friday, March 26 was exactly 1 year ago that we launched the very first 4 episodes of our podcast.
So do you eat sushi while you're doing it?
God, no. No, because as we said, I've got an international audience. Our guests are literally from around the world. So as you can imagine, I sometimes record them because we do record them beforehand, before we launch them at weird times for me. So it could be 8 or 9 p.m. for me, or 10 a.m. in the morning when I record when a guest is from New Zealand or Australia or the East. Mm-hmm. So I can't always. I do have had guests who have done something around sushi. So more recently, I did a recording last week, and that was actually a guest who bought herself some sushi and said, I've got sushi, so I'm ready to eat. I've had one of our guests last year had a virtual background on Zoom consisting of sushis.
Oh, nice.
I had one other guest who said, I'm prepared, I've got sushi socks. And I'm like, there are sushi socks in the world? That is news to me. And I thought I knew a lot about sushi. There are sushi socks in the world. She wore her sushi socks to the recording. So yeah, you can go crazy, basically.
So I have to ask you this question. I know you get asked all the time. Do you have a favorite type of sushi?
Oh, yes. We even asked that. We ask our guests what their favorite sushi is. So my favorite is still the California roll, which is the start of sushi. Everyone that gets started on the sushi journey starts with the California roll because it has no raw fish, so you get used to the idea of eating such a roll. But California is still the one that I order every time I have sushi. Doesn't matter where I have it, anywhere in the world. But after that, anything with tuna, I love tuna. It really doesn't matter what type. It could be a nigiri, it could be a sashimi, it could be a maki, it could be a hand roll. It really doesn't matter. Or anything with shrimp.
Well, there you go. I like a little shrimp. I like a little crab meat too. I like the crunchy. I like spicy. So yeah, I mean, I like some sushi too now. So that, I tell you,
you should come on the podcast.
I would love to. Hey, send me the invitation. I would love to.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for being my guest. You were a great guest. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I mean, I told my audience you would be, and you didn't disappoint. So thank you.
Oh, thank God for that.
well, please, before we take a break here, let them know where they can find your podcast.
Well, the podcast is on all of the major platforms. So whether you listen to podcasts on Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google Podcast, those are the three biggest ones that we have our audience on. But you can find us literally on every platform. So just search for Entrepreneur Sushi Club and it will pop up.
Well, fantastic. I will be subscribing. And guess what, guys? Loubna's not going anywhere. She'll be right here because we're going to take a break and we'll be coming back with PodQuest, which she's going to help us to answer an audience question. You guys stay right there and we'll be right back. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. All right, guys, welcome back to the Productive Podcast. That I tell you, Loubna Zarrou is the truth. She's the best. I love her, and I want you guys to make sure that you check out her podcast and get some sushi while you're at it. But she's still here. She's still here, and we're going to handle the segment we call PodQuest.
PodQuest.
So going over PodQuest right now, we have an audience question, and before you guys ask, you're probably wondering, well, how can I get my question answered? Well, go to our Facebook group, which is called The Productive Podcaster. Make sure that you join and make sure you engage. Now, when I say engage, this is not for you to promote your podcast. When you start promoting your podcast, you will probably get deleted. So this is not for that. It's for you to ask a question or even give some tips, some pointers on podcasting, just to help people, not to promote yourself. So in doing that, our question today, and Loubna, I'm going to have you answer it first. The question today is, do I need to have a soundboard to start a podcast?
The short answer is no. And if you listen to the segment before this, then you have heard that I've just celebrated the 1-year anniversary of my own podcast, and I still don't have a soundboard. I mean, starting a podcast is as easy as using the voice notes app on your phone. That's how you can start with your podcast. You don't need any fancy gear. The most important is what I would invest in if you want to start a good mic, because sound is everything on a podcast. The rest is not important when you start. You can always invest in a soundboard and all this fancy equipment later on. But for now, really, the voice notes on your phone is your way to go.
She's absolutely right. I mean, you heard her mention during her segment earlier where she said, just start. Just start. That is the key. Just starting, because I can't think of one podcast I listened to where I said, oh, they need a soundboard. I can't think of one where I said that. I'm listening to the podcast mainly for the content. Now, yes, will there be audio hiccups sometimes? Yes, of course, they happen. But it's not essential for you getting started. Now, of course, once you get started, you want to improve upon things as you go, but that has nothing to do with you getting started in your podcast. So with my answer, Loubna's answer, those are what we have to share with you guys. So once again, I want to thank Loubna Zarrou for joining us. Loubna, once again, tell them the name of your podcast and where they can find you again.
The name of my podcast is The Entrepreneurs Sushi Club, and you can find it on all of the major platforms. So wherever you listen to your podcast, search for The Entrepreneurs Sushi Club.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you once again, Loubna, for joining us. I want everyone to make sure you subscribe to her podcast, listen to it, get some sushi, enjoy yourself. And of course, Loubna, she's a fantastic guest, and make sure you guys are checking out her podcast and share it with other people as well. So guys, it's time for us to move to my podcast profile right now. This is where I listen to a podcast and I share it with you, and hopefully you guys may like it too. This is one I found on Spotify Studios. It's called Nosy Neighbors. It's fantastic. It's a couple of people. They just talk about different things that are happening in different neighborhoods all over the country. Well, actually all over the world. They get some quirky stories and they talk about them and they give their commentary on it. And it's rather funny. And I got to give it a shout out because my cousin Tiara is one of the producers of the show with Spotify. So I want to make sure I give Tiara a shout out and give Nosy Neighbors a shout out as well. So you all may enjoy checking out Nosy Neighbors. And now it's time for my podcast giveaway. What I'm going to do is give away an audio copy of my best-selling book, Why Didn't You Get It Done? Why Did You Get It Done? If you want to see it, that's the name of the book. You can get it yourself. But here's the thing, I'm getting an audio copy away to Noah Shiflett. Noah Shiflett, thank you for listening to the Productive Podcast. I definitely want to thank you for doing that. And you're probably wondering, well, how can I get a copy? Once again, join the Facebook group, The Productive Podcaster, and make sure that you guys are engaging in there, giving tips, helping one another, not promoting yourself. And we may call your name and give you a giveaway too. So congratulations to Noah Shiflett. And our last segment of the show before we sign off is where we give a productivity quote for you. Productivity quote. And you heard our guest Loubna Zarrou today talk about how she went full entrepreneur. Well, all the entrepreneurs will love this quote. You've been hearing me quote a lot from Sunday at Elijah. Well, I'm going to quote another Sunday at Elijah quote today. It says, joblessness gives you control over the product of your life. Woo. Joblessness gives you control over the product of your life, because now you have to make something happen. So I love that. So guys, that is the Productive Podcaster for today. I want to thank my guest today, Loubna Zarrou, for joining us today. I want you guys to make sure you subscribe to her podcast, but also subscribe to the Productive Podcaster. Share it with everyone. And before I let you guys go, I always sign off by saying, don't just settle for being awesome. Set your goal to all them all, and take action, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Productive Podcaster. Thank you for joining us on the Productive Podcaster. Be sure to join us next time for another great show. We welcome your engagement, so make sure you participate by joining the Productive Podcaster Facebook group and chime in. Also, share the Productive Podcaster with some of your friends right now. If you have a podcast and you're looking for guests, or if you would like to be a guest on a podcast, join our podcast exchange at www.podcastworlddirectory.com. We'll see you next time.